one of the concerns that I'm sure many priests and ministers of religion have had over the last 50 years is the downturn in people worshipping. When I was a little kid, the number of Christian churches within a stone's throw of my parents' home was at least 6 or 7. Most of those are now closed. Perhaps 1 or 2 are still functioning. The few people that didn't go to a church, we used to marvel that they were good people even though they didn't go to church. I can remember as a young person too, towards the end of my studies, a lecturer from Europe telling us that the world was becoming very, very secular. There seemed to be a deliberate movement towards removing anything of religion in the society in which we live. Some of that's not a bad thing, but some of it has had its very detrimental effects. For instance, also very early on in my priesthood, I remember one of the jobs we had, one of the youngest priests in the cathedral, we had to go up and teach the first years, the year 8s at Perth Modern. All the Catholic kids would go into one classroom and the Protestants in another and so forth, and either priests or lay people would come and teach them. Late in the 70s, some fellow by the name of Not Report came out that put an end to teachers of various denominations going into our government schools and teaching children their faith, the truths of their particular denomination, Christian denomination. And I too have been wondering, we're hoping that our pastoral committee might address this issue of why is it that people are finding now that worshipping God is not that important to them. But it has also struck me that in asking this question of the pastoral committee and of the parents of the school and so on, that perhaps I'm asking the wrong question, or perhaps I'm looking at it from just wanting people to come to Mass. Whereas I think what all of us who are convinced of the importance of worshipping God, we perhaps need to ask, how do we make disciples of the people that have given God away? Yes, we're in almost a hostile society. To try to be a disciple of Jesus in the world of today is indeed a challenge. But you see, he said to his disciples and apostles, didn't he? He says, go and make disciples of all nations. He didn't say, go and make everybody go to church, which is perhaps how I'm looking at it. See, you are a disciple of Jesus. You are already, I'm talking to the converted. Just as Father Mark on Tuesday night, when he has his little wonderful catechetical evening on various points of the faith, he's speaking to the converted, people who already believe. But how do we make disciples of the people who don't worship? How do we make disciples of the parents preparing their children for Eucharist and confirmation. Well, I think the Syrophoenician woman that we heard about in the Gospel today, I think she gives us a little bit of a clue. You see, I think we need to remind and we need to teach people that they need to have a desire for God. The teaching part of it seems to have gone out the window. We are not, as it were, proclaiming that message as well as we could be, I think. Friday was the feast of Maximilian Kolbe, and one of the great things that he did, apart from giving his life for another, was that he was convinced of proclaiming God's message, teaching people through the mediums, the methods, the technology that it was available in his day. He had a little magazine. 1 million copies went out. Goodness, Crossroads only does 15,000 or thereabouts. He used film. He used radio. He used newspapers in order to proclaim the message. I don't know that I've got the answer of how we're to do it, but I think we need to begin. We need to start again. We need to have that desire that the Syrophoenician woman had. She had a need to cure her daughter. She wanted to get close to Jesus. To make a disciple means to have someone who will come to the feet of Jesus and listen to Christ. How do we bring the people that are not worshipping God, that don't see a need for God, how do we bring them to the feet of Jesus? Not by bullying them or pushing them or threatening them. We've tried all those methods in one way or another. It doesn't really work. And I think too, another thing that I'm telling myself almost is that there's no need for us to be disheartened. God knows our troubles. God knows the situation we're in. And the church has been there before and come through it. And if we have that desire, we have that determination that we witness there of the woman pleading with Christ, we too will succeed in making more disciples in our school, in our parish, in our community. Let's pray that that will happen.